the Chase Thomas Podcast, for people who have nothing but time to kill.
To tell him, look, come join Julio Rodriguez, come join Luis Castillo, come be on, come be the spiritual heir and successor to Ichiro, do what he couldn't here. And instead they straight up just were not involved in the process. That's a real shame. The shame is putting it lightly, but it's hard to watch, truly.
That it is Jon Tayler. Well, I have another question for you. Dodgers, good idea or not to make Mookie Betts the everyday second baseman that they are planning to do in 2024?
So I think, for me, I don't know if it's a good idea or bad idea so much as it really kind of seems like their only real option at second base, because the Dodgers infield is just kind of mutated into this unusable mess. So part of this is that the various kind of moves they've had to make, particularly in the wake of losing Corey Seager and then Trey Turner, by having to move Gavin Lux to shortstop, who ideally would have been the second baseman. Part of this too was that second base used to be Max Muncy's purview before, in the era of kind of shift, in the era of the defensive shift and kind of positionless baseball. A little easier to play a guy like Muncy at second when you can essentially position him as needed and not have to worry so much about his lack of range or his the other issues that compromise him at second base. But the Dodgers right now do not really have that short or long-term option at second base that works. Miguel Vargas had a very, very difficult season last year, admittedly at third base, but not having him as a realistic option, I think, right now complicates what they want to do with third base. Similarly, Lux blowing out last year, not really being sure. I personally don't think he fits at shortstop anyway, but they're already committed to that because, again, there's no Turner, there's no Seager. They're not going to give that starting job at shortstop to Miguel Rojas. Michael Busch has not looked like a capable major league regular, a guy I think they figured would be part of that infield mix at some point in the future. Maybe it's a guy like Jorbit Vivas at some point in the future. One of their amateur international signings is in their top 10, 15-ish prospect-wise. But the truth is, there was not, if the Dodgers had not moved Betts to second base, if they didn't go with Mookie at second base, they really wouldn't have anyone to go there. This was a team that was running Colton Wong out at second base in the postseason. This was a very thin infield group for them, and also one where there was no real solution out on the free agent market. We've talked already a lot about the availability of hitters on this market, that beyond Ohtani, Cody Bellinger, and Matt Chapman, there's not really a whole lot else in the market, particularly in the middle infield. This was not a problem the Dodgers were going to be able to solve by signing someone. I don't know how realistic it would have been for them to find a trade partner to make something work, particularly once it seemed like the only second baseman who was really getting any play as a potential target, or in any kind of rumor, not even ones connected to the Dodgers, was Jonathan India. Now the Reds have come out and said that more likely than not they're going to keep him and probably have him play some first base as well as some second base. So for the Dodgers, I think they kind of worked themselves into this position where their only real option was, well, I guess we got to put Mookie there. And to be fair, that's not a bad option. Mookie Betts was a phenomenal second baseman coming up through the minors. He is very clearly, he played the position, he was able to play the middle infield well last year. He's very clearly athletic enough to make it work. But it does kind of speak to the kind of messy, almost like improv planning the Dodgers have been trying, almost like the way they've been trying to build their roster the last couple of years, which has this very kind of just constantly shifting deck chairs essentially, and trying to kind of find a solution that works when all their plans just kind of keep falling apart on them. It's hard to look at Betts as anything other than plan G. You know what I mean? This would not be happening if they had figured out something more stable, more long-term, more sustainable already.
So if you had to guess right now, let's just say Ohtani's not a Dodger. Let's say they don't land Ohtani.
And I should note too, a lot of this roster kind of jiggering and payroll kind of manipulation stuff, I think a large chunk of that for the Dodgers was clearing the decks for Ohtani eventually. But anyway, go on.
Well, this is, I guess, a two-parter. One, is there a precedent for this? Who was the last big name MVP type outfielder to move to second?
I have no clue. It is not a move you see really.
Okay,
in terms of the defensive spectrum. Usually guys go from the infield to the outfield because
Right.
that's just the easier position.
Or you go
to
from
play.
outfield to first base like Bryce Harper's doing. Like that's not a big
Exactly.
surprise.
And there are guys like Chris Taylor who can bounce between, infield, outfield, or I remember Brock Holt did that with the Red Sox. But yeah, a guy of Mookie Betts' stature and production, no, that does not happen unless something has gone really, really strange.
So he's there. They're locked in. Like Mookie Betts will be the everyday second baseman.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like he wants to play it. It seems like that's something. And it's also kind of
Dave Roberts
to, like,
was allowed to say that one.
Yeah. Well, it's also like what's interesting about the Dodgers, and I think this is the most underrated thing about Los Angeles. These guys buy in, whether it's Freeman, whoever they bring in, Mookie, like their roles are going to be shifted around. It's kind of like a culture of like, hey, we expect to be the best in the NL every single year. We spin like a team that plans to be the best in the NL every single year. You're going to have to move around. Turner, Muncy, whoever, like you, part of the appeal or part of the cool thing about this team, as much money as so many of these guys make and so many potential ego issues, the Dodgers don't have any. Guys just move over. It's like, hey, we need you to play this. Can you do that? All right, great. We need you to be here. We need you to do this. Because I think they ask for the most amount of positional flexibility.
I think it's probably them in the Rays, which makes perfect sense,
But it's also the Rays aren't paying the same, right?
No, and the Rays aren't going out to get a Mookie Betts. They're not going to. They're neither going to sign Mookie Betts nor are they going to do something like sign Mookie Betts and say, okay, we know you've been an outfielder. You're a second baseman now.
Yeah.
So, yeah, to answer that one at least, no, I can't think of a team or a player that's done that. In part because you don't really see teams, like as you're noting, you don't really see teams asking guys to do that.
No.
Or
I think they'd be nervous. Like, if that goes the wrong way, they might take offense and they want to trade, or they're like, I'm not doing that. Like, no, that's not.
And look, I understand too from a Dodger standpoint, they probably feel it's easier to find a right-handed hitting platoon partner outfielder for Jason Hayward in right field than it is to find a 162-game full-time starter at second base. And on that count, they are almost certainly correct. It is just a really kind of strange outcome overall, though.
Yeah.
And I think, again, it says a lot about the Dodgers kind of, again, just improvisational planning when it's come to their roster in the last couple years, needing to kind of wring out every ounce of flexibility they can find in these guys, because they really, aside from guys like Freeman and Betts and, Trevor Bauer, they're really not making those big investments into guys. They are trying to build the most flexible roster they can, with ideally by spending by trying to not spend too much in any one place. Again, except if Ohtani happens. And I think
they'll be okay with or without Ohtani.
They will be. I think, obviously, as the team with the most money, like there really should be no reason for them not to get Ohtani unless it turns out he really does like the Blue Jays spring training facilities way better or likes playing in a dome all the time.
He also just might like the staff. Maybe he has a relationship with some guys we don't know in
that's
Toronto.
Always,
I don't know.
A possibility. I mean, and again, the thing with the Ohtani secrecy is we're not really learning any of this stuff.
Correct.
We're not getting a sense of what matters, what's important, who kind of has the edge right now.
What if him and Bo Bichette are like super cool and text every day and we never knew that?
Yeah, he and Vlad Jr. are just like they're best buds and they have been forever.
Mm-hmm.
Which would
but we'll never know.
We will never know at all.
No, I love it. I just think the bet stuff is cool because there's no real historical precedent for it. I'm excited to see what it ultimately looks like. I mean, let's go. So the final thing we'll wrap up, John. So what if no Ohtani? I feel like Giancarlo Stanton, if he gets waived by the Yankees, he feels like a Dodgers just like, we'll jump in on the scraps here. We're okay with whatever health situation you're at, and we'll find a spot for you in Los Angeles.
I could see that. I could see them basically deciding, especially because he's a Southern California guy. Yeah. He comes home. The pressure is very much off. Essentially taking the JD Martinez role. It's just the right-handed slugging DH. I do wonder if we'll see what happens with Stanton, but I do wonder what his market would look like if he does get let go.
So 1 through 9 though, John, what's the lineup look like without Ohtani? Would you guess for Dodgers opening day next year?
So it'd be Betts and Freeman up top. Then you got Will Smith and Max Muncy, and then depending on the night starter, it's you have James Outman is probably the full-time center fielder at this point. I guess we'll do the lineup against righties. Then we have Hayward in right, I guess
That's so wild. The Hayward Renaissance.
It's
in Los Angeles.
What can't the
Good for him.
Dodgers do? I think if you're the Dodgers, your concern is probably at this point the bottom three in the lineup, because right now you've got Chris Taylor playing every day in left field, and that's just not gonna fly. You've got Gavin Lux at shortstop coming off a completely missed year. I have no clue what to expect there, and I generally don't have a good feeling about that, particularly defensively. I don't think Lux is.
Go.
Nicely done, nephew. The Chase Thomas podcast. Hell yeah.